The Appalachian Trail Hauntings, based on terrifying true event. The Vanishing crew of Blue Hollow. Before we begin, hit subscribe, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and turn off the lights, because tonight we're going deep into the Appalachian Mountains, where silence itself feels alive. The locals call Blue Hollow cursed. No cell signal, no roads, and nothing but a sea of mist-covered ridges where compasses spin like they've forgotten north. That's where 6 workers set up camp one September morning. Their job was simple: clear an old forest trail on the Kentucky-West Virginia border. The crew chief, Mason, was the kind of man who didn't flinch at rattlesnakes or thunderstorms. With him were Carol, an older woodsman whose hands looked carved from oak; Beth, a rookie with a busted knee brace; Carlos, a college intern always cracking jokes; Ian, the quiet one; and Mark, the newest member, our narrator. For the first week, everything felt normal. Sweat, sawdust, campfire smoke. The rhythm of honest labor. Until things started shifting. A coil of rope went missing. Then a gas can. Nobody cared, until an entire toolbox vanished overnight. Mason blamed carelessness, but Carol's face stayed stone cold. "Someone's here with us," he said. "And they're waiting till we sleep." That night, Carol brewed coffee and kept watch by the dying fire, machete across his knees. The wind moved through the trees like whispers half-spoken. When Mark relieved him around 4 a.m., Carol only muttered, "Didn't see 'em, but they're close." The next morning, they moved camp half a mile west, closer to a spring, farther from an old rusted fire tower that loomed above the ridge like a skeleton of the past. Even then, the air felt different, heavier, watchful. By dusk, Beth froze mid-sentence. Her flashlight beam cut across the trees and found a line strung between 2 trunks, a twisted garland made of their own missing gear. Torn shirts, shredded rope, pieces of fabric braided together. Hanging among them was Beth's t-shirt knotted around a crushed water bottle, and Mason's fleece sliced into ribbons. No one spoke. The forest swallowed every word. Mason muttered something about breaking camp at first light and disappeared into his tent. But first light never came for all of them. Just after midnight, a metallic crash ripped through the darkness. Mark shot up, grabbed his flashlight, and saw beams darting between trees. 2 figures, moving fast, coordinated, not animals. Then came the gunshot, one, then another. Carlos screamed, clutching his thigh, blood spilling through his fingers. One of the intruders, dark clothes, face shadowed, stood over him with a rifle. The other tore through their supplies, ripping tents apart. Mason charged forward with nothing but a shovel, and dropped instantly. 1 shot to the chest. Beth's scream tore through the trees before fading into the wind. Ian bolted, vanishing into the black. Carol dragged Carlos behind the fire pit, hands shaking but steady. Mark pressed his torn shirt against the wound, praying the bleeding would stop. 30 seconds. That's all it took. The attackers melted back into the woods without a word, like ghosts rehearsed in silence. No footprints, no faces. Just the echo of gunfire and the stench of smoke. When dawn finally crawled over the ridge, Mason was dead. Ian was gone. And the survivors knew one thing for sure: this wasn't about theft or territory. Someone, or something, had been hunting them. Carol's voice broke the silence. "We carry him. We leave now. Before they come back." They packed nothing but water and the bleeding boy's weight. 10 hours later, stumbling through mud and exhaustion, they reached the ranger's truck crawling up the fire road. Carlos lived. Barely. But the sheriff's report called it a possible drug crew attack. The files were sealed. No suspects. No follow-up. Just 3 names written in a report, and a trail that everyone in Blue Hollow now avoids after dark. Because once the mountains watch you, they never forget your footsteps. The Whistling Man of Red Ash Hollow. They told me Blue Hollow was closed for trail maintenance. But the locals whispered something else, that the woods had turned mean. Still, when the radio call came through about an illegal campsite near Red Ash Hollow, I went alone. October fog hung low, and the forest felt like it was holding its breath. Red Ash wasn't on any modern map. It sat deep between forgotten mining land and an old family estate, the kind of place where stories start with, "Don't go there." My boots crunched against fallen leaves as I crossed the ridge, and halfway down, the forest went dead silent. No birds, no insects, just the sound of my heartbeat. Then I saw them, red triangle markers nailed into the trees. They weren't park signs. They looked old, carved by hand. They led downhill, deeper into the fog. At the bottom, I found something that didn't belong. A structure, small and crooked, made of bark slabs and tied with something sinewy, not rope, not twine. The outer walls were lined with small bones, neatly arranged like a fence. Squirrel skulls, bird ribs. I thought it was a hunter's blind, until I saw the carvings etched into the wood. Circles, spirals, symbols I didn't recognize. I raised my phone to take a photo. That's when I heard it. A whistle. One long, sharp note that cut through the trees like a blade. Clean. Precise. It wasn't a bird call. "Hello?" I shouted. "Park ranger. You're trespassing." No answer. The silence after that whistle was worse than the sound itself. Then I noticed it, a bare footprint in the mud. Human. Full print. No shoes. No socks. Not fresh, but not old either. The toes were splayed like someone used to running barefoot through woods their whole life. That's when the breathing started. Slow. Heavy. Right behind me. I spun around, flashlight shaking, and froze. He was standing halfway up the hill. Tall. Barefoot. His skin pale as ash, his shoulders draped with a bare pelt. The snout hung down over his face like a hood. I could see his eyes through the dark, sharp and unblinking. "Sir, this is restricted land," I stammered. "You need to come with me." No response. He just tilted his head, like a dog trying to understand words. Then his mouth opened, and the sound that came out wasn't human. A long, drawn-out croak that twisted into a growl. Like someone imitating an animal, but wrong. I backed up, reaching for my radio. Static. Nothing but static. He started walking toward me. Slow. Deliberate. Bare feet silent on the dirt. "Stop!" I yelled again. Final warning. He didn't. That's when I saw it, something hanging from his belt. A blade, long and crude, like it was carved from stone. My legs gave way before my mind even caught up. I slid down a slope, branches clawing my jacket. When I looked up again, he was gone. Completely. I ran until I hit the creek, water soaking through my boot. I waited there, scanning the trees. No movement. Just fog and silence. After what felt like hours, I found a cabin. Old. Sagging. A faint wisp of smoke curled from its chimney. I should have turned around. But exhaustion wins over fear when you're lost. Inside, it smelled like rot and pine tar. Masks hung from the rafters, dozens of them. Carved wood. Twisted bark. Animal skin. Some with teeth sewn into the edges. Then I noticed the skins hanging on the wall. Fresh. Still damp. And that's when the door creaked behind me. I turned and he was there. Closer now. The same pale eyes. He raised a hand, palm out, and whispered one word I didn't understand. Then pointed behind me. I ran. By the time I reached the fire road, the cabin was gone. The next day, a search team found nothing but a pile of collapsed stones. They said I imagined it. But sometimes, when the wind moves through the trees just right, I still hear that whistle. The girl in the woods. After the Red Ash Hollow incident, they shut the whole area down. Officially, it was due to unstable terrain. Unofficially, it was because people wouldn't stop disappearing. 3 months later, a mother and her 12-year-old daughter moved into a small inherited home just 15 miles from that same ridge. The mother's name was Elena. The daughter's, June. They didn't know the stories. They didn't know what was buried in those woods. The house sat at the end of a gravel road swallowed by trees. The first night, June couldn't sleep. The woods hummed, a faint, pulsing sound that came and went, like the earth itself was breathing. By the third day she saw her. A girl, maybe her age, standing at the edge of the treeline. Pale blue dress, tangled hair, eyes too dark for daylight. June called out. The girl smiled faintly, waved once, then slipped between the trees. When Elena asked who she'd been talking to, June said, "Ruth." Elena frowned. "There's no one out here, honey." June just shrugged. "She said she lives up the hill." The meetings continued, always at dusk. Ruth showed June a creek where the water ran cold and clear, a ring of mushrooms that smelled like copper, and an old hollow tree carved with names too weathered to read. Ruth told stories, about hikers who never left, about people who forgot who they were, about the Watchers, who only appeared when the woods grew too quiet. "Never look right at them," Ruth warned. "If they know you see them, they follow you home." One night, Elena followed June. She watched her daughter standing alone in the clearing, talking to thin air. No one else there. No footprints in the dirt. When June turned and saw her, the air shifted. Every cricket stopped mid-chirp. "Mom, you scared her away," June whispered. Elena said nothing, just led her home. That night, she locked every window. But something tapped on June's window anyway. Slow. Measured. 3 knocks. When Elena checked in the morning, the glass frame was scratched. 3 deep marks, each like the curve of a fingernail. Days later, Ruth came back. Her arm was wrapped in cloth, dark stains seeping through. She handed June a small wooden figurine, jointed, faceless, carved from pale wood. "Keep it close," Ruth said. "Don't let it touch the ground. It keeps them away." That night, the tapping returned, louder this time, circling the house. Then came the whistle. Long, sharp, familiar. Elena grabbed the shotgun and threw open the door. The yard was empty, except for footprints leading into the trees. Bare feet. By sunrise, she'd packed everything they owned. They drove without looking back. Months later, a rescue crew went searching after a new hiker disappeared in that same stretch. They found the hiker's camp torn apart, and something else. On a branch near the old fire tower, tied with twine, was the same wooden figurine Ruth had given June. And below it, carved into the bark, were 3 words. "They still watch." The sheriff sealed the area for good this time. But the rangers still hear things over the radio, faint voices, static, and sometimes the whistle. If you ever find yourself hiking through the Appalachian Mountains and the woods suddenly go quiet, don't stop. Don't look back. Because in these mountains, the silence isn't empty. It's waiting.